Welcome to the Coaching for Leaders podcast with intuitive life coach, Dave Shep. Dave pulls from his corporate experience and a bit of new age woo-woo to help you find your own personal power and step up to lead others. Listen in for help merging your physical, emotional, and spiritual life to reach your full potential and live your passion. Let's get started. Here is your host, Dave Shep.
I am so happy today that I have Nic Saluppo with me. Nic is an author.
Hey, you said the name right.
That's awesome. I was kind of guessing there. I should have asked that before we started. Nic has written a book called Learn to Love Yourself Again. It's a step-by-step guide to conquer self-hatred, ditch self-loathing, and cultivate self-compassion. And the one thing that I love about this book is the very first sentence when you said, learn to love yourself again, or in parentheses, or for the first time. Because that is a big thing. So Nic, welcome to the show, and welcome for joining me today. You are you're definitely someone that when I read the book, it spoke out to me in a lot of ways, because a lot of the things that I'm dealing with this podcast is helping realize how important it is to love yourself. Because if you love yourself and you're not embarrassed by what you do, and you're able to create a living from it, and all these things, that you're going to be stronger to help others. What is your guiding focus? Like, what is your why for doing this?
My why is that I was so far down in the dumps, and I knew what it was like to be so miserable and want to end my life. As you're able to hear, my voice is problematic, and that's from an old injury on my neck. And when I was younger, that my voice being unique led to a lot of rejection in my life socially that I never experienced. And so I was so far down, and then I experienced an inner shift, and it was like life opened up, even though my voice wasn't back to normal. My life just opened up, and I saw how wonderful that was to be so depressed and traumatized and miserable. And then now suddenly there's light again. Well, not really suddenly, but there was light again. And so I wanted to be able to give that away to others. And so giving that away to others is my why.
Just you saying that, literally, I've just got like chills all over just from the energy that you're portraying right now, and how positive and loving that is. Because I agree with you. I mean, there have been times in my life where I have felt so low about myself with self-esteem. When I was injured, and then I had some life-threatening thing. A couple of things have happened to me where I've almost died a couple of times, and it was just like, holy crap! I want to give up. But like you, it is that mind shift, that little something. And for me, it was a solid support system. So, people that loved me, people that cared about me, and people that are like, you know what, I love you and I need you. Please come back to me. And when someone says, please come back to me, it's like a slap in the face, because you're like, okay, so what is it that I'm doing? And it's like, it's like you're giving up, and I just need you to fight. So for me, my illness and my injury has become a part of me. And even today, I'm thankful for it, because I wouldn't have attained a spiritual and an emotional growth because of it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that same way?
Well, yeah, my inner life just opened up so much, even though my outer life is sometimes limited, like talking on the phone. A lot of times, they're saying, what? And I have limits, but those outer limits have guided me to create an inner life that is so abundant. And so I don't know if you know Richard Rohr. I love Richard Rohr's work. Rohr
Or
is how you spell the name, but he says when you experience limits, it is an opportunity for inner abundance. And so usually people experience those limits when they're midlife or later, or even near the end of life. And then they don't know, what do I do now that I have limits in my life? And that's why there's a very high suicide rate in individuals above 70, 80, 90 years old, because they've never had limits, and now they do. And so my limits sort of forced me to say, do I want to give up, or do I want to dig deep? And for me, it was my mentor. You read about him in the book, Ron, my mentor, who he guided me into that inner journey, where he said, Nick, you can be joyful and abundant inwardly, even if your outer circumstances never change. And I didn't believe him, and it was a long journey. It was, about a 9-year journey of I was severely depressed and had that PTSD. But finally, I was able to go in and understand what he meant. And then shortly after that, I began to do this sort of work.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because in your book, when you talk about your mentor, I think that was one thing that impressed me, because as one thing I've noticed from all the books that you've written is that you want to help people. You're very physically fit. You love exercise. I think you have just a way of telling people how to be successful, but physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all these different things that you're doing. And it's kind of how you dedicate your life. So the healers that I've worked with in the past, they have those abilities too, but they don't feel worthy enough to ask someone for help. How did you find Ron, and how did you say, hey, how did that mentor relationship develop?
It's a funny story, but go on and finish that sentence.
But how did when you found him, how did you make the shift to realize, hey, I'm worthy enough to have someone help me? Or was it him grabbing you by the shirt and saying, come on, I'm going to help you? How was it?
So I don't remember if Dan was in the book or not, but I have two mentors, Dan and Ron. Now Ron is gone, but Dan is around still. So I met Dan. Somebody I knew introduced me to Dan, and for about a year, Dan was saying, Nick, you got to go drive out and meet Ron. And I was like, 90-minute drive. I don't really want to do that. But it wasn't until I was on the brink, where daily it was, now this was about 12 years ago, but it was daily suicidal thoughts. And then even beginning to think about how I would maybe do it. And so I was just so miserable that finally I said to Dan, all right, give me Ron's number. I'm going to go meet Ron. So it wasn't really a worthiness thing. It was, I need an answer because I'm going down a very dark path that, there may be no return. So it was more of that. And then the worthiness really wasn't there until maybe 3 years being with Ron, driving out every week, 90 minutes there, and then 90 minutes back.
Wow.
And then after about 3 years, I began to develop some sense of worthiness, which that word I have, I believe everybody's evenly worthy. So it was more like, rather than worthiness for me, it was more like, oh, wow, there is, I'm seeing some progress that I can heal. And that's what it was about for me is, am I able to heal? If I'm not emotionally and psychologically, if I'm not, then is it worthwhile? And Ron would always say, your healing is the number one thing. Don't give up on your healing. And his encouragement kind of, I guess, motivated me for a while.
Wow. That's awesome, because
Yeah,
driving 90 minutes to and from, I can see why it took, I mean, that's dedication. Did,
yeah,
when you started with him,
yeah.
what was his approach? What was it, more of a nurturing, or
Mm.
was it more
Mhm.
of you need to find grit, or what was his approach?
So yeah, I don't know if you know what mat work is.
Mhm.
So he did something with me that I was surprised by, and many healers and therapists would say, "Whoa, that's going over a line," but he knew that I needed it and was willing to risk his reputation. And so what we did was mat work. The first time I was there, and what that is where you lie on your back and he lies on you, so you're belly to belly, and then you wrap your arms around him, and so you're on your back, he's on you, and then I wrap my arms around him, and then he digs his ribs into the third 3A and 2A chakras. So basically, into your gut area, he's digging his ribs into there, and then as he's digging his ribs into there, it brings up all these feelings, and I felt a ball in my gut. It felt like a ball about the size of a grapefruit moved from my lower gut up into my heart, and then into my neck, and then I was then yelling, and it was like all this energy went out of my mouth. Um, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before, but it was something about him lying on me, digging his ribs into my gut, and then he used some provocative language to get me to yell and express what I had held in my body for 25 years. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was what we did. It was,
Holy cow.
yeah,
I have to say I've never heard of that, but it sounds very transformational. And I mean, just the experience of it.
yeah. I
It
think he knew that I needed it and knew
right.
that I would be receptive to it. I don't think he would do that with
Right.
everybody on the first meeting.
Yeah, no, and wow, and I agree with that because I've done things like I've done some outside of the box therapies in the past, and you always
Yeah,
when who needs it, and
yeah,
a lot of time for me it's like my spirit guides saying, hey, this person needs this,
yeah,
and introduce it, and um, wow, that's incredible of
yeah.
releasing all of that anger. I mean, I think what hit me the
Well, it
most was
was anger and grief,
grief, yeah.
both.
But
Yeah.
I love your description
Hmm.
of feeling like a ball and coming out and then being able to yell and scream and say things that you bottle up.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It was, so it was like I felt my body was so free for about a week after that. It just, I was so free, and there was so much tension that was released, but because I didn't know yet how to process my own emotions, it all went back. But Ron did that to show me, hey, look, there's a better way. And then my work over the next few years was learning to do that for myself and not need somebody else to do it. And then that is what my book is all about. How do you do that for yourself?
Wow. That's just that's an amazing story. What what was it hard writing the book or did it just flow out of you naturally?
It was pretty natural. It was
Was it?
very, yeah. I wrote it in, I think, about 3 days maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then and then you go back, and then I edit
Edit
it
it, yeah.
once, edit it again, and then send it over to my editor. So I
Wow.
wrote it in about 3 days, and then there's all the editing and
Yeah.
formatting that takes a while.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
it just flowed out. Yeah.
I love that approach because I always tell people when they're creating something, don't be your own critic and don't be your own editor while you're doing the creation.
Yes.
Create it
Yes.
start to finish, then go back and do that. And a lot of people,
So important.
yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize that at all when they're trying to create
Hmm.
something and do something.
Yes.
You mentioned in your book about being elastic. Can you talk about what that
Hmm.
means?
Yeah, it means that we tend to believe our thoughts, and that, oh, I am this way. I am anxious. I am melancholic. And while we may act in those ways or experience those feelings, we are not that. We have the ability in our mind and emotionally to be um, something else and transform. So, what it means to be elastic is to know that you are not what you believe you are today, or the way you identify yourself today.
Wow. How can someone who's listening to this podcast, who's feeling like all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes or so,
Yeah.
they're 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 identifying, they're being
Mm.
like, wow, I've been suicidal, I've been in pain, I've been injured, I have felt not
Mm-hmm.
worthy. What
Yeah.
what would you say to them right now to help to help get them to begin that shift, to begin the process of healing, to love
Yes.
yourself?
To not be afraid of your feelings. So, all mental illness is a result of trying to avoid our feelings. And because we're afraid of them, right? When we were younger, we were shamed for our feelings until we learned to be afraid of them. And then so we developed these defense mechanisms as ways of avoiding feeling our feelings. And not feeling our feelings is what develops mental illness, anxiety, depression, PTSD, you name it. And to not be afraid of them, to know that all they are is a sensation in your body, in the same way that needing to urinate is a sensation in your body. So to not be afraid of your feelings, and then once we're not, we can feel them, and then once those feelings are felt and discharged out of us, we're going to feel a lot better. Now, I know that is a lot, and there may be more to break down in it, but the general idea is you don't need to be afraid of your feelings.
I completely agree with that. I was coaching someone last night on a private session, and we were talking about her past, and she's like, Dave, I don't want to dive here because I don't want to feel this stuff.
Yes.
You know, and we talked about that for a little bit, and I was like, well, I get that, but nothing can hurt you right now. You know, all this pain that we're talking about are from people who have passed away. They're no longer in your life, yet these ghosts are still haunting you because of these memories, and by facing it. So we talked a lot about that, and I told her that you were going to be on my show today. So she's like, I can't wait to listen to it, because it's crazy. One thing in your book that I really liked is I've been working with personal power, self-help, self-love, self-respect, all these different things for a long time. Your approach to was the healthy physical habits that are involved with
do you mind if before we go there, do you mind if I add one more thing?
Yeah, please do.
About feeling your feelings.
Yeah.
So I say, don't be afraid of your feelings. And I remember what it was like being afraid of my feelings, and how I would avoid situations and inner dynamics that would bring up those feelings. So I get like, yeah, they're scary, especially when you never learn or were never told that all they are is a bodily sensation. So I was there, and I don't want to just sound like, oh yeah, don't be afraid. But when I began to feel my feelings with Ron, and then I realized, oh shit, I feel better now after I felt my feelings. Now, better isn't a feeling, but you know what I mean. My body was just in a better place. My mood was elevated. And that was when I realized, oh, when I feel my feelings, I'm elevated. I'm in a better mood. I'm happier. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm going to feel all these feelings because I feel so much happier when I do. And I get that a lot from my clients. You know, they say, well, rather than avoid them now, I just feel them, and then it's over, and I'm able to move on with my day in an elevated mood. So that was what I wanted to add.
Oh, I love that. Thanks for adding that additional insight.
Yeah. I didn't want your listeners to think like, oh yeah, you just aren't afraid. Like, I get it that it's scary. But once you do go into that unknown of, all right, I am going to feel my feelings, you will then begin to have that elevated mood, because those feelings you want to avoid, there's now nothing to avoid, because you went into them and you felt them, and now they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're integrated.
Yeah, and being putting, and the way that you said it, I like this. Like, look, I've been there. I've been where you are. I face what you're facing. It is not easy, and this is not going to be something that we're going to solve overnight. But if we can just spark something in this conversation,
Yes.
that will allow it, and know that I'm not just going to say it and leave. I'm going to be on this journey with you, because I think that's a big role of a good mentor, a good therapist, a good coach, a good healer, is that it becomes a partnership. And that partnership is when the person doesn't feel alone anymore, and they have this sounding board and they have this support system. And it makes a difference. And
Yes.
so I love how you explain that, because that building that is so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though it won't be totally gone overnight, I find that when people do feel their feelings, they feel, or they notice their mood is a bit elevated and improved right away. Now, that may not remain, all day or all week or all month, but now they've made an inner connection that, when I feel my feelings, I am in a better place than when I avoid them. And then that is motivating. That's like, all right, here we go. I'm going to feel more of my feelings. And then it's a positive snowball.
Mm-hmm. I have one client that I've worked with for a year and a half now. And when he hears this, he's going to turn it off right now because he hates feelings, and he knows who he is when he's listening to this. And he hates, and he tells me, Dave, I hate feelings. I don't want anything to do with emotions. No, just teach me how to be successful, but I don't want to feel anything.
Yeah.
And I remember once telling him, I was like, well, you're going to be an incredible dad, but your son is going to say to you, my dad was really incredible, but I just was never really able to get close to him. He's like, wow, way to slap me in the face right there. And he said, the sad thing about what you just said is I say that about my dad. And he said, and he's like, I don't like feelings. And so we've been processing that. We've been working on that on all this time. And he's made amazing strides in the thing. But it always has to, whenever you're trying to help someone heal themselves, it always has to go at their speed and not yours as a healer and as a therapist and a coach. And that's something that some healers don't recognize. They're like, hey, I have an agenda, I have a time frame, we're going to be together for this many sessions, so let's get you where you need to be. So when I work with the healers, I'm always like, look, you have to let the client lead with their feelings. You can't tell them how to feel. You have to be there. Have you ever had a situation like that where you felt that in both, like somebody doing that to you?
Would you maybe a little more on what you're wondering there?
Yeah, but basically, like, have you ever met someone who's trying to heal someone, and it's like they have an agenda of, well, I know I can get you feeling better, so we're going to do it in these 3 steps, or if you follow this program, you're going to be at a much better place. And they're not realizing that it needs to be on your timeline, not theirs.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And you're asking, have I ever met
Yeah,
anyone
yeah. Have you ever
that
experienced
way?
that? Have you ever experienced that with anybody that you've worked with who's tried to do that to you? Because it seems like Ron was very patient. You said that Ron let
Uh,
you. Ron, it took 3 years of working with Ron in order for you to clear
well,
that.
right. Here's the thing. Ron was always there, but he would always, um, give me a yeah. He was always there no matter what. And while he was there, he would shove me a bit.
Hmm.
And so I tend to want to find that balance
Right.
of, all
The
right, I see that you don't want to go here, and I'm not gonna, leave you. I'm not going to um, not be available. However, I am also gonna uh, give you a bit of a shove as well, and encourage you that, all right, if you choose to not, take this next step, you're gonna maybe feel down in the dumps for a while longer. But when you do take this step, you're going to say, oh man, I wish I would have done that, you know, 3 months ago. So I do, I would say maybe more than some therapists. I do I guess I'll use the word encourage my clients to go into that scary unknown area that they don't want to go in. Now I also balance that out, with empathy and with, saying, you don't need to do anything you don't want to do. However, in order to feel the way you want to feel, eventually you'll need to do these steps. And so, yeah, that is a balance. Um,
I love that, and
yeah,
I do the same thing, and the reason I wanted to ask you about that is because
yeah,
I think it's that important. I call it pushing outside the comfort zone.
yeah,
It's like I'm always going to push you outside your comfort zone, but I'm always going to be that safety net that's there for you as well.
mm,
So I love what you just said. I love how you just said it.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Um, one thing in your book you talk about healthy physical habits and how that applies to self-love, and you're
yeah,
probably one of the I have like I've read a lot of books and I've worked with a lot of people. For you to encompass the physical with the emotional and the spiritual um, is something really really cool. Could you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. Um, so I noticed that people like, nurses, therapists, um, trainers, uh, who are healers, are drained and exhausted. They tend to neglect their body's needs. So they'll maybe not go to the bathroom when they need to go, or they won't eat when they need to eat, or they'll not get enough water or enough rest. So I added that in there because what I noticed is that people with good self love and boundaries, they tend to be very effective in their work without wearing themselves out. And if you're holding in your urine, or you're not eating when you need to eat, or you're not getting enough water, your body is going to be an overdrive. It's going to be like trying to, drive a car on fumes, and things are going to overheat and malfunction, and then you're going to naturally be exhausted. I find that when we eat, go to the bathroom, rest, and drink enough, there's way more energy available in our bodies, and we mitigate that risk of wearing ourselves out and stretching ourselves thin. I mean, in the field of psychotherapy, there is a big burnout rate, and same in training, and in nursing as well. There's just a major burnout rate, and I believe that is why. So I wanted to address that in my book.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's true, because I know several CNAs and several nurses that will go in for their shift and they will not eat until they get home that night because they're so busy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have a friend that that is a nurse, and I've actually taken her food. It's like, I'm talking to her and she's like, well, I haven't eaten today. I'm like, well, okay, I'll stop by and get you something, take it to you. My husband is a CNA, and I literally have to, and he takes a little cooler with him with some waters and all. And I'm always throwing like a banana and some yogurt and a protein bar. And I'm like, you have to eat this because I know you refuse to take your lunch.
You're nicer than me.
That's awesome.
I'm more like, well, I'll say, well, you're going to be worn out until you begin to make that time for yourself. And so I'm not saying either way is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is how I do it.
Yeah.
And so I want, I don't know if I want, but I noticed that I don't want them to suffer. But what I do want is for someone to be so worn out that they say, well, shit, I need to do something about this. And so I see that people usually change when they're at that point of, at the bottom, at rock bottom. And so I want them to get there as fast as possible so that they can say, well, shit, this sucks. I'm going to do something about it.
So the message today, listeners, is Dave, stop enabling people.
And it's hard, though. It is. We love people and we want to be there.
Right, yeah.
And it's hard, when I don't get enjoyment, even though I'm laughing right now, I don't get enjoyment out of that. It hurts me to see that, but I also know that if they don't reach their bottom, they're never going to change. And so it's painful, but also I have not seen anyone change until they were at a bottom.
No, and you're absolutely right. And a lot of the situations that I've helped with people with over the years has been when things are so low, that's when the change happens. So that's a really that's a really important reminder. So thank you.
Yeah.
One thing you talked about in your book was rendering negative thoughts harmless. That's a powerful statement. What led you to adding that into your book?
Yes, rendering negative thoughts harmless. So usually people believe their thoughts. So they say, well, they're not saying this consciously. They're saying this at an unconscious level that I am my thoughts. And then in a session, when I say, well, you're not your thoughts, they then say, well, who am I or what am I then? Because we think, well, I am, I live down south in Louisiana. So down here, somebody might say, I am a man. I own a truck. I wear boots. Um, I don't take shit from anyone. Um, I don't get into those feelings, things like that. And these are all thoughts. And so they identify with the thought, and then they believe the thought is who they are. Now, that is all well and good as far as it goes, but it only goes so far. And then when you run into life, when you run into the challenges of life, oh no, now I'm having a thought that says I'm not enough, or I'm a wimp, or I'm not good enough, which is similar to I'm not enough. And so, oh no, I'm having that thought. It must be true. And I'm here to say neither is true. Neither the good one or the negative thought. You get to choose what you want to do with your thoughts. And so rendering them harmless means we don't believe them. We just say, oh, look, there's a few neurons firing in my mind. All right, what do I want to choose to do in this moment? Now, I know that's sort of vague. Maybe you have a follow-up on that.
Well, I think it's neat because a lot of people are that follow law of attraction are like, thoughts turn into things,
Yeah,
and all these different things that we deal with.
yeah,
But what it comes down to, I love what you're saying, because when you disempower your thoughts, when you take away, like basically it's like you've given your personal power to this thought, and the thought now has a name, the thought now has a form, the thought now has power over you because you're giving
yeah,
it to it. And just being able to take that back and say, look, yes, I'm having this thought, yes, I'm sad about a certain situation, or I hate this part of my life, and all these things, but I'm not going to let it determine who I am, and I'm not going to let it hold me back from my potential, my life purpose.
yeah,
And that's a more enlightened, and you got to work through some pain in order to get there, and hopefully you can find someone like you to help facilitate and bring that healing through. um,
yeah,
and that's a good thing, but knowing that when you do have thoughts that, and when you give them power, it's like you're a battery, you're just making them
yeah.
bigger and bigger, and you're turning them into the shadow force, and all these
Yeah,
things.
I like that phrase of giving them power. In the book, I wrote a few examples of I was writing the book and I had the thought, I'm never going to finish the book. Now, if I believed my thoughts, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But I use my thoughts. I don't identify, I don't get my identity based on my thoughts. So I use them. I say, all right, well, there was a thought that I'm never going to finish my book. All right, what do I want to do? What thought do I want to use now? I want to use the one that says, I'm going to write one more page. So I did that. So I view them more as tools for me to use rather than my identity. Um, so using my thoughts as a tool has allowed me to get a lot more done, a lot more of the things I want to get done, rather than believing that they're my identity. Like if someone says, "Oh, I really need to set a boundary because somebody, my husband is being disrespectful, but I'm afraid, or I don't know how they're going to react. So, do I want to identify with that thought, or do I want to use my thoughts and say, well, but what is going to hit me where I want to be? Doing a boundary. All right. So I'm going to use the thought that says I'm going to follow through on the boundary. So viewing my thoughts more as a tool rather than as identity.
I love that. One thing that I've noticed, and this has been within myself as well, is that I could not set a boundary until I had some self-love and self-respect.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hardest things for people, is because we talk about boundaries as healers a lot. And people just don't understand it. And you really understand it when, because with me, I work with self-confidence, self-esteem, self-love a lot with people. And then when I work with those three, and we get all three going with the mental, physical, and spiritual, then it's like self-respect comes into play big time. And that's like at the top tier with things that I work with. And when you have all of those, you get that self-respect, all of a sudden you're starting to have boundaries and saying no to people, or you're starting to put some distance with different things, and being able to say, no, I'm going to be selfish, and being selfish is not wrong. Being selfish is taking care of me so that I'm strong enough to help take care of you. And this comes as a parent, this comes as a husband or a wife, or anything.
As a nurse.
Yeah. Exactly. So I love that. But one thing you talked about is separating thoughts from feelings.
Yes.
And that's
so important.
Yeah.
So important.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So a feeling is a physiological sensation. A thought is an image or words in our mind. So often somebody will say, I feel like I'm not enough. Well, I'm not enough is not a physiological sensation. You're not able to feel in your body, I'm not enough. Therefore, it's not a feeling. I'm not enough is a thought or a belief, which a belief is a thought. And so we really need to be aware of not attaching a thought onto a feeling. Otherwise, we're screwed. There's no way out if we say that, or if we believe that. So, like, as an example, if you say, I feel like I'm not enough. I'm not enough is the belief. And I always say, well, wait a minute. I'll interject and I'll say, what is the feeling under I'm not enough? And a lot of times it's either shame, fear, or a mixture of sadness and anger. So shame, fear, sadness, and anger. And those are all physiological in the body. And so when the goal in separating your thoughts and your feelings is that you can say, all right, now I know what the feeling is driving the thought, and by feeling the feeling, I can dissolve the feeling and therefore render the thought powerless. And that's how we render thoughts powerless, by feeling the feeling under the thought.
I love that. It yeah, that's so amazing and powerful. I'm processing and absorbing stuff that you said because it's hitting home a lot.
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
With everything that you've been through, and with writing a book about loving yourself, and having all of these wonderful tips, and you have a lot of examples in your book and a lot of interactive things that it is amazing. But
Mm.
someone as enlightened as you, and has gone through everything you've been through, do you still have bad days? Do you still have self-doubt?
Mm. Um, I would say absolutely to the self-doubt, but bad days. I just, I don't view it as a bad day. I view it as, all right, I'm experiencing pain, but pain is not bad. Pain means there's something in me that needs to be addressed and processed. And thank goodness I have the pain to let me know that it's there. It's sort of like there's a medical condition where you don't feel physical pain, and so if your hand is on a burner and you don't feel that, your hand's going to burn off, and now you won't be able to use your hand. So when I experience pain, I say, oh, good, now I can address whatever the underlying matter is now, rather than it manifesting and building and growing. And now I'm really screwed, 3 months down the road. So bad days, I don't know about that, but painful days, absolutely.
No,
But
wow.
yeah, yeah.
I love that answer. I mean, holy
Mhm.
cow. I mean, that's just such an amazing way to look at it.
Well, one more thing I would add is that,
Sure.
you know, I feel, grief and sadness and anger, just like everybody else, but I don't view those things as a negative. I view them as, all right, I just need to process these feelings. And so that is the major difference. Is that is how we interpret those feelings. Do I believe that it means something is wrong, or do I believe it means my inner guide is saying, "Hey, Nick, you need to deal with this inner issue." So that is all I wanted to add on to that.
No, I love that because it's
Yeah.
like it's like you feel comfortable that you have the tools in order to process things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like what we talked about earlier. Sometimes the things that really affect us and impact our lives, they tend to be blessings in a lot of ways, because
Yeah.
it helped us work on the internal more. Because
Yeah.
I think that had I not lived the life that I had, that I would not be so uh, well, I wouldn't be who I am today, and I love who I am today.
Mm.
So
Yes.
because I love who I am today, I'm okay with having to deal with all of that pain that I went through, and I'm grateful for all of the lessons that I learned and all the pain that I had to go through with other people as well,
Mm.
or in order to find
Yes.
who I am. And it is so it is very rewarding. But you're right,
Yes.
it does give you the tools
Yeah.
to be able to say, because there are just days where I my to-do list is quite long, and I have all these things to do, but then it's like some self-doubt gets in, or
Mm.
some pain gets in, and I'm just like, okay, so I can either shut down and not do it, or I can try and process it healthy, in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do both. Sometimes I just
Mm-hmm.
ignore it, and I'll just go binge watch Netflix.
Mm.
Because like I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to deal with life today, and that's okay. And I'm not going to get mad at myself I lost a few hours, I'm just going to be like, okay, that's what I needed at the time, because I needed
Yeah,
to
it's
not
normal
pause.
to need a break.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and to not, but I think some people, when they're trying to overcome pain like this, that they judge themselves and they have high expectations of themselves, and they're unable to
Yeah.
process some of their shame. And that's the thing of what people are feeling, is just like, you know, I don't, um because people will call me, it's like, well, you know, I know all the stuff that you told me, and I feel like for the last 3 months things have been great, but these last 2 days have just like, I've reverted back to my old self.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you know, but that's okay. You have to forgive yourself for that, because the fact that today you pass it and you process those 2 days, then you're making strides, and it's just these things come up, and some people see that as a defeat and as a failure,
Mm.
and it
Yeah.
truly is not, because it's always going to be a part of us, but having the tools to process things, and to overcome them, and to find that inner strength and that self-love and keeping it. I want people to know that, don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of feeling bad every now and then, or feeling pain every now and then, like you say.
Yeah. Pain. Yeah. You know what helped me so much is is knowing that I am able to feel any feeling. I share a lot about, how do you get how do you get through all of the struggles, but there was a day or a time, and I still am willing and do this, where I'm at a workshop, and I'm on the floor just bawling my eyes out, full go, in front of everybody there. And so, knowing that I'm able to feel the depth of that grief or the anger, and that those feelings are all right, that gave me a lot of uh, confidence to say, I don't need to avoid any feeling that may arise. And so that's where I was able to then say, well, there's really no such thing as a bad day. There's just a day where I need to feel feel some feelings in order to uh, process and discharge them. But it's very, very hard to get into someone's mind that feeling strong emotions of grief and anger is not bad. It's been so ingrained in their mind that anger bad, grief bad, sadness bad. It just is. It takes a while to get in there and make sense. And that is the journey, is unraveling all those old beliefs so that they're able to let in a new belief.
So,
Yeah.
so what's in store for you in the future? Like, you've written what,
Mm.
7 books? Is it 7 or 6?
I'm not sure what the
Yeah,
number is.
you've
Yeah,
written
seven
quite a few
or eight, or
books. Yeah.
yeah, 7 or 8. I'm not sure, but so I've got a new one um, coming out. It's called "Communicate Your Feelings Without Starting a Fight," and it's about how to interact with your partner without it leading to a fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I have another one that is written, and that one will be then after that. It's outsmart negative thinking, and so that one's going to be all about using mindfulness to outsmart negative thinking. And then there's another one that's written, demolish depression, and using emotional processing in order to work through your depression without needing any medication or things like that. So I have a few on the way.
Wow.
I have a website I'm building. It isn't ready. It's ready, but it isn't done yet. I use it. So NicSaluppo.com. I've got some fun shirts on there about mental health.
I love your shirts. I actually sent I sent the picture to a friend of mine earlier. And it's the one that is mentally healthy AF, mentally healthy as fuck, or at least working on it. And I saw that shirt and I was like, this shirt's amazing. So definitely. So on Instagram, you're at Nic Saluppo.
Yeah.
And you spell Nick the cool way. So it's
N-I-C.
N-I-C. And then Saluppo is S-A-L-U-P-P-O. So at Nic Saluppo on Instagram. And then NicSaluppo.com is your website. I'll make sure in our show notes, and I'll put links to for how to people to get hold of you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
If anybody wants to talk further with you about this, about your book, or about anything we talked about today, is it okay if they reach out to you via?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for today. Wow. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that I didn't ask, or?
Not right now, but maybe down the road we'll do it again.
I would love when your other books come out. If you would like to be on the show again, I would love to have you back. Today has been so informative, and I actually feel like I've learned a few things. And I'm grateful to you for that, because it's really neat. One thing is when you it's so hard loving yourself at times. Because so many people, for so many people that you love, when they say something to you, they get through all your shields, they get through all your defenses, and when they come to you and say, well, you're not doing this, or you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you're not, fit enough, all these different things, you may sit there and think, oh, they're just playing, or, they just that. But in a way, they chip at your ego, they chip at your self-esteem, they chip away at you without realizing it. And sometimes love can be a very hard dagger that pierces your heart, because the person is loving you the way they know how, and they don't realize they're doing harm. So this is such a random or a hard topic for people. And I love the 3 books that you have in the works right now, because it's like you're just identifying, and you're trying to break it apart and say, look, this is not overwhelming, and here are some tools that's going to help you, and I'm going to break it down for you. It sounds like that's your life purpose, and that's your life mission, and I'm really proud of you, and I'm grateful that you came on today. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that is one area I do address in my next book, is what do you do when your partner is being verbally abusive, or insulting, or using name calling? What do you do other than argue back? What else can you do other than argue back? And I do go into that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today, listening to me and Nick.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, listen.
Thanks. I do wish you a lot of luck and with your podcast.
Any messages that you have about today's podcast, please feel free to let me know. I always answer anybody who reaches out. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks for listening to the Coaching for Leaders podcast with Dave Shep. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you know someone searching for their life purpose, be sure to tell them about the show. Find Dave at facebook.com/Dave Shep Consult and on Instagram at Dave Shep Consulting, or visit the website at www.daveshepconsulting.com.